Don't focus on relationships. Finish school, get your master's and girls will be all over you. What piece of advice did you take to heart when you were younger, only to have it bite you in the ass? Don't change who you are for other people. I get what they're going for when people say that, but sometimes you're a shithead and you should change. Even if you aren't a piece of shit, it's still a good idea to change depending on the crowd. If you're in a group of people that don't play video games but that's all you want to talk about, it's not going to go well for you. Broaden your horizons. Good things come to those who wait. I lived by that. I was the most patient person and really believed that if I was patient and waited, life would come to me. Holy fuck, was I wrong. Spent my early 20s unhappy. Took me until about 25 that I realized that whatever I wanted out of life I had to get the fuck out of my apartment, put myself out there and grab it. It was good once I did, but man, I wasted years just waiting. All you have to do is work hard, the job will find you if you're the best. Then I learned about this thing called networking. This hits a little close to home. All throughout grade and high school it was stay in school, get good grades, and get a good job. Never once was I ever really told it's about who you know until midway through college, and by that point I was too socially stunted to even know where to begin with meeting the right people. I was taught it was rude to disobey adults. Went through a rough childhood because I was too afraid to say no. Same. And it was a brutal beating every time I didn't listen. Developed a total lack of self-identity, because I stopped having an opinion. An opinion was always rewarded by not getting it, or getting beaten for making it known. Just stopped making decisions for myself. And then the extreme fear of failing is insane too. Because if you can't do it how the adult wanted you to, you're gonna get messed up. This causes me so many issues to this day. He's only picking on you because he really likes you. Bullshit. Hated this so much. It's not surprising that all the girls I knew growing up who were told this, myself included, found themselves in seriously abusive relationships. He tackles me in the hallway because he likes me. He rips my bra off through my shirt because he likes me. He tells the whole school I'm a whore because he likes me. No 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 no. My niece, 8, was in elementary school and some boys had been picking on her. Tripped her in the schoolyard, she landed wrong and got a nice hairline fracture in her left arm. I talked to her and she said, "They're only picking on me because they like me, right?" At that moment, looking at my sweet gentle niece sitting there with tears and a little pink arm cast, what I really wanted to do was murder some 8-year-old boys. Instead, I told her if those boys liked you, they would respect you and be nice to you, and not hurt you. And even if they do like you, you don't have to like them back, or to put up with getting picked on. Then I told her that her grandma, she lives with her grandma, my mom, didn't approve of fighting, but if my niece felt like she needed to stand up for herself, I'd always be proud of her and back her up. Last summer, niece now 11, told me about how a boy had been picking on her at summer camp and she tolerated it until about halfway through the week, when she shoved him and told him to back off. He left her alone after that, but she got in trouble. The camp counselor had told her he's only doing that because he likes you. Niece was obviously troubled about this. She doesn't really get in trouble, she's a quiet kid, but I couldn't have been more proud of her and let her know it. Not really advice, but my parents would always hardcore judge everyone on TV. Like, oh, they have green hair? That's pretty weird, so I grew up both doing that to myself and other people. This led to me not being happy with my choices, and also judging other people for things that are blatantly non-moral issues. My mom is like this, but it wasn't just on TV, it was, and still is, everywhere we go. I grew up around it, so I never really thought it was weird. I thought everyone did it, and I did it too. Thankfully I've slowly been learning a lot of the stuff I found normal growing up isn't normal and am becoming conscious of it and changing. Step 1 is to realize that it's not normal behavior. I never knew a lot of the things I learned from my parents, mainly from my mom, were not right. They were just normal to me because it's what I grew up around and was never taught otherwise. I try to catch myself now. Just yesterday I was on Instagram and a family friend posted a picture and I noticed she had gained quite a bit of weight since last time I saw her. I was about to send that picture to my mom and comment on her weight gain. Then I stopped myself and started thinking, why does her weight gain matter to me or anyone else? Would I like it if people were making fun of my pictures on social media? Why do I feel the need to show this to someone else and judge her? It's stuff that used to come naturally to me because to me it was normal to constantly judge others. It still happens. Change isn't always easy, but it's important to try. I'm also trying to judge myself less. I learned to overthink every single thing I do, even what freaking shirt I wear, because I was always worried my mom would have a judgmental comment about it. It's hard because it's engraved in my head, But I'm trying to be conscious of it. There are other things, such as escalating arguments, trying to solve things by yelling, that I'm trying to unlearn, since it took me this long to realize those things aren't normal. Just try and catch yourself doing these things and try and stop yourself. If you tell the truth, I won't get mad. Mom. The worst part is that should be true. If a child messes up, owns it, and asks for help to fix it, the parent shouldn't react in anger. People associate being mad with anger, see rage, and with punishment. You can be angry without screaming and yelling and telling them why they fucked up. Educating them on why their decision was poor can be achieved and is a far better lesson than simply punishing them out of spite. We should want our kids to learn from our mistakes, and there has to be some type of reinforcement for both good and bad behavior. This is also a very hard skill to learn. Work hard and have unquestioned loyalty to your company. Eventually, you'll be rewarded for it. Back in the day, that was most likely true. The reality is companies have a bottom line, and that is their top priority no matter what. However, never forget that you are your own bottom line, and always do what is best for you, as your employer would do for themselves. My company used to have a lot of employees who worked for them for 20 to 30 years. The pay was a little lower than the market, but it was seen as a good, stable company where you didn't have to worry about your job unless you were a total screw-up. It was a trade-off many were willing to make. They are now outsourcing everything they possibly can to India, Colombia, Philippines, etc., and laying off all of these employees who have never worked anywhere else. My takeaway: even if you think you have a solid job, keep your skills and resume up to date. Take extra training, certifications, etc. Some of the people we are laying off started with the company right out of high school, stayed for 25 years, are too young to retire, and learned nothing beyond what they needed for their current job. They're competing with younger applicants with better education for jobs now, and they're going to come out on the losing end. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do, was one of the biggest pieces of poppycock I'd been told as a kid. Clean your room. No, I don't want to. While you're living under my roof, you'll do as I say. What happened to you don't have to do anything you don't want to. Don't talk back to me. I was told the same, but with the added but you do have to accept the consequences of your choices. Sometimes those consequences were punishments or the like. And sometimes I chose the punishment because in my head it wasn't as bad as the thing I was choosing not to do. Don't focus on relationships. Finish school, get your master's, and girls will be all over you. Well, that was a load of bullshit. The best thing that happened to my social life was my friend, former Navy guy who I met in college. We interned at the same company one summer, and I'll always remember him saying, "You suck at talking to girls. You won't run into these people again, so let's get you some practice." Cue sitcom level awkwardness for a summer, and it got better, thankfully. That doesn't work for everyone, but it helped me. That, and just talking with girls to make a new friend, hoping for something more, but not pushing towards it. Actually have made long-term friends at house parties and gotten in relationships that, while they didn't last too long, ended amicably and gave me some experience with what I want. No, you don't have to change a thing about yourself. When girls get older, they will lose interest in the popular guys, and they will realize how smart and talented you are and appreciate your quietness. And I continued being introverted and playing video games all day for the next 5 years, until I realized that I had to get out there and talk to people, if I wanted to learn to have relationships with them. So many wasted years. Plus, it's terrible advice to promise something that cannot be promised. People aren't rewarded for good behavior. I think this is really the important lesson here. Too many people feel entitled to the attention of others, oftentimes without actually doing any self-reflection. I fell in love with a girl in the summer of '89. She was sweet, lovely, all the things you could want. She did have a bit of a wild side, but it was something I overlooked because I enjoyed being around her so much. There was something about the way she smiled at me that just made the rest of the world disappear. We dated all through high school, and we were the favorite couple of our class. My parents met her late in our relationship. I was rather reserved when I was younger, and reluctant to share details about personal things like that. We all had dinner one evening, and all seemed to be fine. She told my parents stories, laughed at my father's jokes, complimented my mother's cooking. It was a wonderful evening. But after I walked her to her car and kissed her goodnight, I turned back towards the house and my father was waiting for me on the porch. He was sitting on one of those little wooden porch swings, and was smoking one of his favorite cigars. I can still remember how the smoke looked, dispersing through the porch lights into the night. I sat down next to him and he said to me, "Son, I know you like this girl, and that dating is fun. But when it comes down to it, I wouldn't recommend you stay with her. When we were listening to her stories, there was a gleam in her eye, something I didn't like, something wild. I don't know, something just seems off. I recognized this advice as baseless and without meaning, so I ignored it. Flash forward a couple of years. We graduated, and we're off to college. I was at the school of my dreams, dating the most amazing girl, and got to share myself those next few years with her. We even managed to get dorms just down the hall from one another. I was happy. But in the weeks following our moving into the college, something changed about her. She grew more volatile, cruel even. She would say awful things to me without provocation, but I figured all this was just the stresses of our studies. But I never forgot what my father said, and began to reconsider our relationship. One night, as we lay in her bed, I suggested that perhaps we should take a break. We were in a whole new world, with new exciting things to try. And since we'd only been with each other, I figured we should try seeing other people, get more experience. She did not take this well. When she heard this, she calmly went down to my belt buckle. She undid my button, and I wasn't about to turn this down, so I let her. She then flipped me over, brushed her lips up my legs up to my rear, and bit me right in the ass. I shouted, and tried to brush her off, but she held on like a beaver on a log. It started to bleed. I kept on shouting and managed to knock her off me, and she took a chunk of my ass with her. This is how I ended up running down the hall with my jeans around my ankles and blood spurting out my rear. As you may guess, the relationship was ended soon after. Thanks for watching. Subscribe below for more daily content.